Oh, hi, I didn't see you there. I'm just out for a stroll in my new 18th century stays. What's that? You want to know how I made them? I made these stays in 1 week while also teaching my friend how to make a pair of stays, and I would love to share it with you. So, let's go. I started by examining this old pair of stays that I had made for myself back in 2009. I really love these stays. I think they're so cool, so fun. I love the fabric that I picked out for them, and miraculously, they kind of still fit me. It's just that they're not really a perfect fit, so I just want to tweak the fit, like make a few adjustments to the pattern before I come up with the new pattern. I've also digitized the pattern for these stays, so if you would like to use my pattern to create your own pair of stays, I will link that for you. Enter Joy, my twin. It's always easier to fit things when you have someone else to help you with the back, and I was so grateful to have Joy here for this part. After figuring out how we wanted to tweak this old corset or stays pattern, I basically traced out my pair of stays and took a pattern from them and then adjusted what we had determined needed adjusting. Since Joy and I are pretty much the same size, we're gonna go ahead and use the same pattern here. This pair of stays does lace in front and back, so I think any very minor differences will be okay. Joy also wore my old pair of stays hiking, which you can see in the hiking and corsets video that I also filmed while I was on this visit. So we're pretty confident that the stays pattern we're taking from this is going to work for both of us. And as noted, having the stays lace in both the front and the back does honestly give you a little bit of room for slight adjustments, which is one reason why I like this style so much for myself as well, because if I change size slightly over the years, I'm not going to suddenly have my stays not fit at all unless I change size a lot. I just love this fabric. I think it's so like fantasy elven, and that's totally why I picked it out. I'm making my stays from this cotton leafy print fabric, and I am interlining them with a cotton canvas, and then I'm also lining them with a cotton twill, and I will be making mine reversible. Oh, wait, hold on. We're only working on one project? No, that can't be. Let's add another one. We decided to work on another bodice pattern that Joy had started working on years ago. This is for a bodice inspired by the fit of 16th century Renaissance gowns. This is really exciting because I think this bodice is going to be really versatile and you can wear it with so many things. It's so cool. And look how cute it is. While Joy worked on transferring the adjustments we made to that new 16th century bodice pattern, I started sewing the seams of my stays together. While we're working on these, I always tried to be at least a couple steps ahead of Joy, so that way I could kind of show her what I was doing while also making progress on mine and helping her to do the steps that I had just done. Here you can see a bit more of how we are transferring that 16th century bodice pattern with its adjustments onto some pattern paper. It was so exciting to make this pattern at the same time as we were making stays. Even though we didn't make these bodices that same week, we did focus on the stays. This is basically the body of my stays, and here I have not cut my tabs yet, so that's why it looks kind of weird on the bottom. It's really important to iron those seams open. Ironing is always a task I feel like I want to skip, but I understand that I shouldn't skip it because it's kind of important. And here's Joy working on her stays. What we're doing here is making sure that she's got all the pieces organized. Joy is using this beautiful print for her stays. Joy is also doing 3 layers on her stays, so she has a canvas interlining and a cotton lining. In both of our cases, the way we're making our stays is such that they could actually be reversible and worn with the lining side as the main fabric as well. Next, I am sewing the front and back edges of each side of my stays. And while Joy is catching up on sewing some seams, I am working ahead and cutting my tabs. And now it's time for boning channels. I've sewn some of the boning channels, the ones that go along the front and back openings, and then the ones that go along the seams. And right now I'm really taking my time because I want to make sure that I really understand where I'm putting the boning channels and why they're going there, what's the engineering structural functionality. So that way I have a full understanding of why I would put boning channels in a certain place. So that way in the future I could make any variation and I would be able to structurally place the channels where I need them to go. I'm also cutting more tabs in mine than we have in Joy's and in the one that I made before. And I'm actually trying to figure out structurally where to place them and where I think that they fit well with the boning rather than just randomly cutting them. So I'm taking a lot of time right now in order to get this really down. In contrast, when I first made this original pair of stays, I just kind of placed the boning where it was supposed to be placed from a pattern. That's kind of the difference between earlier level versus more advanced level. You can always follow a diagram of where to put boning, but then as you get to a different level, you might want to know why does it go in each place so you can engineer your own boning layout. Here Joy is catching up on sewing her pieces together and starting to cut the tabs.
Nice clean edge there.
It looks really good.
And it looks reversible.
Heck yeah! Now you see where there's that little extra bit of seam allowance? We're actually clipping that off.
Oh, it's so nerve-wracking.
So that when we go ahead and put the binding on the bottom of these stays or the corset, it will be really nice and even.
Boom, done. Oh, it looks really clean because it's a fresh cut.
Here are all of my tabs cut and my boning channels. And as you can see, the boning does extend down into the tabs.
The reveal.
The reveal of the boning. Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
do it!
We ordered that boning from Burnley and Trowbridge. That is the plastic that is meant to mimic baleen, so it's like a synthetic whalebone. I've been such a steel user my whole corset making life. This is actually my first time using the synthetic baleen. I gotta tell you that I really, really like it. With the synthetic whalebone, you do need to Dremel down the edges after you cut it, so that way it's not gonna like cut through the boning channels. You want the edge to be smooth. Each piece of boning is a little bit shorter than the associated boning channel. You want to be able to have room to sew on a binding and also have a little bit of wiggle room so the boning can actually slide slightly in the channel, because if it doesn't have that room, it's more likely to undergo stress and try to poke through. So if you were going to do a 1/2 inch seam allowance for your binding, then you would need 1 inch if it was going all the way from top to bottom, because half top, half bottom, plus a little bit more wiggle room. So you might want to leave like 1.5 inches. There's not really a specific rule, and you can usually tell if you've left it enough room or not when you stick it into the boning channel and see if it has space to move a little bit. Here Joy is sewing her boning channels, and while she's doing that, I'm moving on to the binding for the lower edge of my stays. You're doing great.
Thank you. This is both exciting and terrifying all at once.
I've cut a piece of bias binding from cotton twill, and what I'm doing here is pinning it on to the right side of my stays. And actually, since I'm making them reversible, it could have been either side. Then I am sewing down that piece of binding. Why do I have 2 sides?
Why must you be symmetrical?
Right.
What kind of cruelty is it?
And then I could go ahead and finish the binding, but it seems I felt it was more exciting to insert the rest of my boning first. Because yay, an accomplished task. I'm going to be hand stitching the binding, so it's going to take me a pretty long time to sew it down. But that boning is going in real fast. Joy did something so extremely clever with her boning. There are some channels that become kind of diagonal at the edge where the seams meet each other in a diagonal way, and she actually cut her boning so that it was diagonally formed to fit perfectly into those channels.
Oh no, Daisy! How will I ever make sense of which bones go where?
Joy, how on earth are you gonna figure it out? This is crazy.
Well, I had a brilliant idea at 3 a.m.
That's the best time for ideas.
That if I put numbers, well, let me find number 1. If I put numbers on the boning channel, or I mean on the boning pieces, then I would know which ones to go where. So let's see, for example, this is number 2. Can you see the number 2? All right, and so number 2 goes in 1, 2, ta-da! And so then I know it goes there. Dun, dun, dun. It's a perfect fit.
Number 1.
Number 1. So that goes in the slot number 1.
What?
Now, obviously,
Amazing.
I do have to remember that I made it 1 through 12, but I have this glorious diagram
Check out that diagram.
to help me remember. 3 a.m. ideas, baby.
Here I am hand stitching the binding down to the edge of my stays. So basically I've folded it over so that it's kind of sandwiching the edge of the garment. And then I'm just hand stitching that with regular thread. The corners are really tricky, and the more I do them, the better I get at them. So honestly, really be kind to yourself and realize that they don't have to be perfect the first time. In fact, that old corset that I was looking at, it did not look perfect at all. It looked like I was just in a rush to finish it, and I knew it was going to be underwear. This time I'm being way more careful as I'm at a very different place in my journey than I was back then. And honestly, Joy's finished edges, when you see them, look better than my finished edges did on my old pair of stays, which tells you that it's not just your sewing experience, but also your mindset that makes a difference on what type of finish you get for your garment. This is an old Ren Fair hat that we found in Joy's closet. I'm pretty sure it's a +5 to sewing ability. Here's how the edges of my tabs are looking after sewing on the binding. At this point, I think everything looks so nice and clean and beautiful. So we're gonna need some lacing cord, and I decided to do finger loop braiding. I needed a really long one, so I'm basically finger looping my entire body length. Here I've been hand stitching the eyelet holes on my stays, so I'm actually almost done with mine, and we're gonna go over to Joy's again right here. Woo, looks amazing. Joy, how do you feel?
Oh my goodness, if I wasn't exhausted, I would feel even more excited.
And here Joy is catching up by pinning on her bias binding to her stays. She's doing hers the same way I did, where she is hand stitching it down. And let's make some hand sewn eyelet holes. I really like to use embroidery thread for mine, and I have a whole video actually instructing how I sew hand sewn eyelet holes, so I'll go ahead and link that to you if you want to learn step by step. On my old pair of stays that we had looked at the beginning of this video, I did use metal grommets, and those are fine too. I think the hand-sewn eyelets look really good, and it's a really period look, but they do take a lot of time and patience, and doing this many for a pair of stays that laces all the way up the front and the back and also has that little attachment for the straps, it was a lot of work for my fingers too. This is at the end of 1 week, so we have worked on our stays for 1 week, and I have completed mine. I think the fit is really, really good. I haven't laced them fully tightly in the front here, so that's why there's a slight bit of gap. I'm letting them warm up a little bit to my body before I really lace them as tight as they'll go. And if you're wondering what's going on with Joy's stays at this point, she has a lot of hand sewing she needs to do, and she is working on catching up. I was only in Washington for 2 weeks, and toward the end of my stay, Joy actually had to go to work for a few days, so she did have to finish her stays after I left. At the time when I left to come home, this is how her stays were looking. They're looking so good and so clean because she's really taken her time with all the seams. One half of the stays is mostly bound with just a little section at the bottom needing to still be sewn, and the other half needs binding. And then there will be the eyelet holes, which Joy has also chosen to do by hand. Time for the reveal. My reveal was shot in Washington while I was still there, and I even found a forest of little gnome friends. I'm so happy with the way that these stays came out. I think they look and feel amazing. I'm totally 100% won over on the synthetic plastic baleen, and I actually would love to use it for more corsetry projects in the future. I'm wearing the stays here as sort of a history bounding look, though I do plan on wearing them with my 18th century dresses in the future. What Joy and I both wanted to achieve with these stays, and I think we did such an amazing job of doing, is making a garment that is historically based and we can wear with historical costumes, but we can also wear with modern clothes, and we can have that fantastical history bounding look whenever we want and however we want to style it. I'll include a link in the description of this video to the pattern for these stays. I digitized the exact pattern that we are using here, so if you need to make some adjustments, I do have some instructions in the tutorial on how to adjust the pattern to fit you perfectly, rather than making just standard sizes, which everyone is going to have to adjust anyway. I have a bit of math that I usually do to fit corsets and bodices and things like that, so I really hope this will be useful to you. And if you're already working on your own stays or even any type of corset, I hope that this video gives you a little bit of insight and maybe a little bit of tips and tricks on some of the steps, or even just a sewing buddy. Joy sent me these photos of her completed stays, and they look so phenomenal. I'm really pleased with my stays and proud of them, but I'm also extremely proud of Joy because this was her first pair of stays, and she did such an amazing job on them. And now for the question I know that you've all been asking, can you climb a tree in a corset or a pair of stays? Let's find out. Well, friends, it looks like the answer is yes. Yes, you can climb a tree in a pair of stays. If you want to keep hanging out with me and seeing everything that I post, make sure you subscribe if you're not already. Hit the notification bell. If you are inspired to make a project, please feel free to tag me on social media because I'd love to see it. I'm Daisy Viktoria everywhere. My website is daisyviktoria.com, and a special thank you to my patrons over on Patreon who help me so much to continue creating amazing content. I hope you all have an amazing, wonderful, magical day, and I'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye. Ow. This thing is sharp.